Sure, yeah, okay, definitely. All right, thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, they wanted a question. They were gonna,
Welcome. It's my privilege to welcome everybody on this day where we are doing the ribbon cutting and dedication of our beautiful depot here. I'd like to acknowledge a lot of the people here that made this happen. This just doesn't happen on its own. It's a tremendous effort. And I'd like to recognize the electeds that helped make this happen. Vice Mayor Bob Werner, Councilmember Steven Spadowski, Councilmember Coomber, Councilmember Carlin here. No? Okay. Integral part of this as well. We also have Supervisor Scott Haggerty as well. Thank you. We have is any representative from the Stockman's Association here? They were very important at the beginning of this. Wine Growers Association, I think we got some representatives from them as well. I would like to acknowledge the founding members of the Livermore Heritage Guild. Please raise your hand or stand, please. Livermore Heritage Guild. The LAFTA Board of Directors and LAFTA members. Thank you. LAFTA will be the caretaker for this building. So this building will be cared for by LAFTA. So it'll be 21 hours a day of its tender loving care. Alan Frank is one of the principals that made this happen. Don Carter is here as well. He's the artist who did much of the great work. He's Marilyn Carter, a long-time liaison for the military here in Livermore. And the city staff, they're the ones that really made this happen. So please raise your hands if you had anything to do with this project. What an absolutely tremendous effort this has been. So, welcome to a day that's been 126 years in the making. How many people have heard of the towns of Ulmar, Elliott, and Lansville? Yeah, well, you're history people, I expect that. But most of the people here, or most of the residents of Livermore, have never heard of those towns. That's because those neighboring communities vanished in the landscape. Livermore thrived because William Mendenhall had the vision to dedicate the land for a train depot. Livermore was part of the Transcontinental Railroad, and the first passenger train to stop in Livermore was in November of 1869. Ann Homan relates a great story from the Alameda County Gazette that demonstrated the creativity and the collaboration of Livermore residents even back then. You see, if the train was running behind schedule and there was only one passenger, they would just go on by. So what the residents of Livermore figured out is they would, like 10 or 15 or 20 of them would show up at the station. So the train had to stop. And then the one person would get on. And the Gazette said that this was called the delegation plan, and it worked charmingly. There are many personal connections for this day. The famous Dews Gold Spike that was driven at Promontory Point rests only about an hour from here at the Cantor Arts Center at Stanford University. Mendenhall, the man who named the city and founded it, was a stockman, and he shipped livestock out of this depot. Livermore wine and produce were also shipped out of the Livermore depot. And years ago, I used to work at the Winehaven Castle at Point Richmond. And that was, that Winehaven Castle received wine that was shipped from Livermore. They'd roll it over in barrels from the Wagoner Winery onto the train, and it went to Winehaven. Of course, when I worked at Winehaven, it was actually an estuary ecology and marine lab for middle school and high school students. My grandfather was a railroad engineer at the first half of the previous century. And today, on your way into the depot, you can have your commemorative ticket punched with his ticket punch. So, when the depot was closed and the tracks were removed in 1973, our depot lost its context and its connection to history. And as the depot was being dismantled, a group of citizens rallied to save it, and they created the Livermore Heritage Guild. And their charge is to protect yesterday's history today for tomorrow. And because of their early efforts, we can celebrate our depot today. As the city of Livermore planned its downtown, a bold idea became a reality. With perseverance and creativity, the city was able to leverage local and federal grants to restore the depot to its original glory. But there was a condition. It had to be put back into service. So even a visionary like Mendenhall could not have imagined this day where our beloved depot would be returned to the tracks and once again serve our community as a train station. Thank you. With that, I'd like to invite up the chairman of the LAVTA board. As I said, LAVTA will be the caretaker for this building. And that a man who's been a tremendous supporter of Livermore and the entire Tri-Valley, and that's Scott Haggerty.
It's always difficult to follow Mayor Marchand. This is a historic event, and I'm really pleased that once again we're working to save a national treasure, because I do believe that these old train stations are national treasures. This is the second one I've been involved in trying to save. The one in Niles Canyon was the first. So it's been a really great pleasure, and I want to thank everybody who's here today to speak about, or to be here for the revitalized Livermore Historic Train Depot. As I said, it's really a pleasure to see this depot structure return to its original beauty and purpose. It's exciting for me when we take an important historical landmark and ensure its good use of enjoyment by and for the public for many years, and those also who will be working here. I have heard nothing but great things from the people who have toured this building, and quite frankly, I had the opportunity about 2 months ago, I think, to walk through it, and I can tell you that the city of Livermore did a first-class job in making sure, working with the Historical Guild, to make sure that this was restored to its original beauty. And I think we owe them, both the Historic Guild and the city and our city council members and the mayor, a round of applause for that. As I am here today as the chairman of LAVTA, and a proud chairman, by the way. These small bus operators really do a great job in trying to secure the last mile of transit for the residents, and I can tell you that because the Tri-Valley is not associated with those like AC Transit, they get much better service. So I'm very pleased with that. But as I stand here as LAVTA, I want to make sure that I recognize Michael Tree, our executive director, who is very much involved in this. Michael, where are you? There you are in the back. And also maybe standing near her, I did see her earlier, Jennifer Yeamans, who is the point person for this. Jennifer, are you around? I saw you earlier. There you are, hiding in the back over there. And I will say that LAVTA does not consider their job as the caretaker. They don't take it lightly. And in fact, they recently just received, 2 weeks ago, a $440 million, I wish. Sorry, those are MTC numbers. I'm sorry. A $440,000 grant to continue improvements here, and that was through the good work of Jennifer Yeamans and Michael Tree. So that's great. Help and see Michelle Lovezzo here and know that she must be smiling too, because this train depot is just continuing to help revitalize and bring new energy to our downtown, and this is a tremendous improvement for our transit riders, for the LAVTA riders, and also those who ride the rapid bus service, as well as the ACE rail passengers. With the tracks are just right across there. So I also sit on the LAVTA board, or the ACE board, and I know that we've been very excited about this too. For those of you who know a little bit about my involvement since I've become a county supervisor, you know that I have made transportation my #1 policy area. Not because that's why I ran, but that's what my constituents said we needed to address. And it's a policy area that has become near and dear to my heart. I've dedicated much of my career to ensure that those who live in the Tri-Valley have the ability to get where they need to go and do it efficiently. This train depot serves as an excellent reminder of our vast historical importance on public transit here in the Tri-Valley. The transportation network that we have here was put in decades ago, nearly, and has helped shape the Tri-Valley and the Bay Area. Unfortunately, our existing transportation infrastructure is very much congested between the I-580 corridor between the Central Valley and here in the Tri-Valley, and it's getting worse each year. More and more families are being priced out of the Bay Area housing market. Transportation is the key bottleneck for the Tri-Valley's growth. The Altamont corridor is the gateway to the Bay Area, connecting the Central Valley to the Port of Oakland through Interstate 580, and has the second highest volume of truck traffic, say that 3 times fast, in the region. And more bad news, it's slated to increase by 60% by 2040. So we have a lot of work for us ahead of us. The Bay Area Mega Region report prepared by the Bay Area Economic Council indicates that commuters crossing regional boundaries grew by 78% between 1990 and 2013. 68% of those people are commuting into the Bay Area. Bay Area home prices are 3 times higher than those in San Joaquin County. And I just heard that the median home price down in Santa Clara County is $2.3 million. That's one city in Santa Clara County. Commuters from northern San Joaquin Valley and the Bay Area have more than doubled since 1990 to 2013. It comprises of 15.8% of northern San Joaquin's resident workforce. San Joaquin, another place we don't want to be known for, but San Joaquin places top 10 nationally and those who commute over 90 minutes. So those who have to commute over 90 minutes come from San Joaquin County. These are large-scale mega-regional problems with direct impacts on our quality of life here in the Tri-Valley, and we are taking bold and innovative steps to address both these problems on the local and regional level. In addition to serving as the chair of LABDA, I'm also the chair of the Tri-Valley San Joaquin Regional Rail Authority, which I know Stephen Spadowski sits on representing LABDA, and then our good mayor, Mayor Marchand, has been very active in that. And we're trying to establish and develop a viable, cost-effective public transit alternative for the vast amount of commuters who find themselves in bumper-to-bumper traffic over the Altamont Pass each and every day. Our current project, Valley Link, is in the process of making its ambitious goals a reality. At the Metropolitan Transportation Commission a couple weeks ago, I was able to secure via unanimous vote after about almost 2 hours of debate, because they really don't like giving money down here. They really don't. But we were able to secure $10.1 million on a unanimous vote to do the environmental work and the design work on Valley Lake. The rail service being planned will conveniently and seamlessly connect the Tri-Valley communities with this Dublin Pleasanton BART station, and our goal is to have these trains operating by 2024. With more and more people living and working in the Tri-Valley, the need for more efficient and user-friendly transportation has never been greater. LABDA and Valley Link will keep more individuals out of cars and onto trains and buses, connecting people with housing and jobs, while improving our economy and helping protect our environment. This restored depot serves an important monument of the past, the present, and the future significance of transportation in this region. This is truly an exciting day. I want to congratulate the City of Livermore on their hard work, and also thank everyone for attending this historic event. Thank you. So with that, no, come here. You're the man. You're the man. With that, I'd like to give this to Mayor Marchand. It's a commendation from, it says Board of Supervisors, but just me. But on the celebration of the reopening of the Livermore Railroad Depot located at 2500 Railroad Avenue.
There you go. Well, thanks, Scott. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for your tremendous efforts to keep people moving through this corridor and your great support for the city of Livermore. It is truly appreciated. So with that, I'd like to invite up our city historian, Richard Finn, who will be punching the tickets today, but providing some additional perspective on our depot. Mr. Finn.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been asked if many changes happened because of the train stopping here in Livermore in 1869. And let me tell you a few things that I found out as I researched that. Before the train station was built, there were about, we don't know for sure, but there were about 75 people living in the Livermore area. 75. By 1880, that number had jumped to 855. By 1890, it was up to 1391. And of course, now it's over 90,000. So why did Livermore grow so fast? And I think the answer is because of one very forward-thinking man, which the mayor made reference to, and that was William Mendenhall. Mendenhall bought 600 acres out of the old Rancho de Valle de San Jose. When he heard the railroad was coming to Livermore, he donated 20 acres for a depot, warehouses, and equipment sheds. He then had his land surveyed, and his 600 acres surveyed, and streets were laid out, and he donated land to at least 2 churches that we know of, to a grammar school, and to the Livermore College, which College Avenue was named after. Mendenhall named the town for Robert Livermore, the Valley Pioneer. The new town was from the railroad tracks south to about 5th Street, and then from Lizzie Street, which is we now call Livermore Avenue, to Q Street. And then a few years later, 1875, Andrew McLeod expanded from Lizzie Street to Church Street, and from 1st Street to 6th Street. And the same year, Alexander Eston added the northern addition, which was about from the railroad tracks, Oak Street, up to Pine Street. By the 1880s and 1890s, large amounts of bulk wine, not bottled, but bulk wine, grains, hay, cattle, bricks, we had brick factories here, were being moved by the trains. By 1900, we had at least 5 hotels. And again, this is a town, we only had a little over 1,000 people. We had a lumber mill, we had many large warehouses along the train tracks, and we had a couple breweries, and we had an ice house, we had creameries, and we had many wineries by then. Before the town of Livermore, there was another town called Ladsville, and that was starting about right here, and the nucleus of it was by Junction Avenue and 1st Street. That was kind of the center of Ladsville. Now, when the train bypassed Ladsville, it went into a steep decline, and then in 1871 there was a big fire, and that was kind of the end of Ladsville, because most of the merchants then moved to the new town of Livermore. I would like to invite all of you to the Livermore Library at 1:30 today. This is a little ad for me. I'm giving a talk then about Livermore as it was in 1900. So that's at the Livermore Library at 1:30. It's going to be kind of a virtual walk through Livermore using old-time photographs matched to modern photographs.
Oh, cool.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finney. And at that time, in the very early 1900s, when we had a population of a little over 1,000 people, the Sweeney Opera House could actually seat about 1,100 people. So it just shows, even back then, we were quite a community and very deeply vested in the arts. A man who has also been a great visionary for our community and a tremendous supporter for preserving history and recognizing the arts and the talents of Livermore is Alan Frank from the Heritage Guild. I'd like to invite him to say a few words.
As the retired curator for the Niles Canyon Railroad, the city turned around and asked me to be the historian for this project. My experience has been that unless a structure is actively used by a going concern, it will wither and die. And that's just what I saw happening to the depot. After railroad service at the depot ended in 1971, neither the railroad nor successive investor owners brought a going concern to the depot. A restaurant came and went. A title company, a realtor, an architect, a dance studio, downtown Livermore, all spent some time in the depot. But in between, the most frequent customers of the depot were the homeless. And as a result, I'm actually surprised the depot actually survived. The Livermore Heritage Guild was instrumental in saving the depot. They had hoped to turn it into a museum. However, the partial demolition by the railroad and the railroad's mercenary interest made a volunteer restoration effort impossible. The tracks moved away from the depot in 1976, and since then, the importance of passenger rail has now re-emerged. So the plan to move it back to the tracks and return the depot to service was born. Today, we are dedicating our refurbished historic depot and returning it to depot service for which it was intended. In the public waiting room, we have a storyboard and a video covering some of the history of the depot. There's also a collection of artifacts from the earlier railroad service of the depot. In the limited time this morning, it's impossible to touch on all the highlights, intrigues, and shenanigans that occurred over the 126 years of the depot's history. In a few weeks, we will be publishing a detailed tell-all history of the depot. I would like to thank city staff in particular, Rosie Ellen, Frank Guido, Dennis DJ Abarian, for their support, research, and help in putting together the display. I would like to thank several people for donations or loan of artifacts that are on display in the depot. Stephen Rosconi, Ralph Dominici, Anders Lundberg, Liz Johnson, and Monty Patterson. Historic photos from the collections of Mel Lemos, John Saberaria, Dottie Eberly, and Jeff and Loretta Kasky and the crew of the Heritage Guild for help with the research and finding historic photos and identifying and dating them. Niall Runge has taken a series of time-lapse photographs of the refurbishment effort, and in due course that will appear in the video display in the depot. I would like to recognize an eyewitness accounting and analysis of the events of the saving of the depot in 1973 by former Valley Times editor Barry Schrader. He was extremely helpful in recounting the history. I'd like to thank Donald Carter for his magnificent display cabinet and bench. Dennis O'Brien for telegraph support. He made the old telegraph that we have actually work. It's in there working right now. And a great big thanks to Scott Haggerty, John Marchand, Mark Roberts, and Michael Tree for putting all this together.
Thank you, Alan. And by the way, Barry Schrader is the author of the bestseller, Will the Last Person Leaving Livermore Please Turn Off the Light Bulb? Seriously. So we are also very fortunate to have an amazing breadth of talent here in Livermore. And with that, I would like to invite up our Poet Laureate, Cynthia Patton.
This past weekend, I was at a historic statewide poet laureate gathering down in Tujunga, which is above Burbank in Southern California. And it's really an honor to be able to follow immediately on the footsteps of that with all that energy and deliver, another poem as poet laureate. So thank you for this opportunity. This poem is called Back on Track. It must have seemed an unlikely spot in 1892, after the lumbering stretch of Central Valley and the Altamont's barren slopes. But there it lay, Livermore, nestled in its golden valley, cattle dozing in dappled shade, neat rows of Victorian homes and vineyards sprawled over tawny hillsides, the fruit of the western frontier, now attainable by train. In the heart of town, a sunny station greeted travelers with its beautiful blue-framed door. It served 4 generations, survived 2 world wars, until engines gave way to autos. An aging landmark, bereft of the tracks that had given it purpose. If it could, would it speak of steam's mighty thunder, or the glamour of the California zephyr? Did it ache when trains traced different paths, slipped past in the dark, leaving only echoes? For decades, the depot languished. Restaurant, offices, real estate. Then, after 125 years, it inched through the night to a new home on the tracks. Did its windowless eyes leak tears when it again felt the hum of the rails? Now journeys begin and end once more within its sheltered embrace. Commuter trains speed past as millennials sip soy lattes, surf the internet on devices that fit in a backpack or pocket. Here, the past resides comfortably with the future, reminding us we are resilient. We are free to constantly change and evolve. Welcome back, Yellow Depot, to the singing rails that give you life.
Thank you very much. That's beautiful. Thank you. So you're all invited to participate after the ribbon cutting. You're invited to participate in tours of the area of the depot, and also Mr. Finn will be punching the commemorative tickets with my grandfather's punch. So make sure you get that done. And I want to mention that Mr. Frank mentioned these previously, but I wanted to highlight the 3 of the particularly historic artifacts that are here. The telegraph key that he mentioned, which will click "Welcome to Livermore" in Morse code. And I remember in Boy Scouts, that was one of the things you had to learn was Morse code. There's also an original piece of rail from the Transcontinental Railroad in the display cabinet, which thank you, Mr. Carter, for doing that. And that piece of rail was originally used to support the station master's cook stove chimney in the old depot. And it's made of rolled iron, as I said, part of the original Transcontinental Railroad, which was later replaced with steel in the 1870s. And the depot clock, which was served in this depot from 1930 right up until the depot closed in the 70s. It was given to a longtime Livermore resident who received it from a station employee, and it was later given to Charlie and Audrey Patterson, who have owned it and used it for those 40 years. And it was generously donated by Charlie, Audrey, and Monty Patterson this year. So thank you very much for that. And I'd like to invite my fellow council members, Supervisor Haggerty, Mr. Finn, and Mr. Frank up for the ribbon cutting. We're serious. Okay, since the LAFTA board members are here also, would you please come up? The LAFTA board members that are here? Well, you're here. Oh, there we go. Very good.
I already got one.
With that, 126 years, the depot is now open once again, serving this community.